Dawn found Cole Turner standing beside a widow's gate. Cold wind, empty fields, and a dead paper nailed to her door like a hanging sentence. Anna Whitlock stood barefoot in the frost, clutching the notice men said would take her ranch by noon. Cole Turner said nothing, just counted coins into the banker's trembling hand. The debt vanished with the sunrise. Anna watched the quiet cowboy turn toward the empty road. Then she saddled her horse. Wait. Cole Turner. A widow does not ride beside a man unless the story has already begun. Before we ride deeper into the story, hit subscribe, ring the bell, so you'll never miss another ride through the legends of the Wild West. Now, let's get back to the trail. Cold dawn wind dragged through the empty street of Dry Creek. Dust whispered across the boardwalk like a tired ghost. Cole Turner sat high in the saddle, watching a town that looked half asleep and half forgotten. He had ridden through 100 places like this. Stayed nowhere. Spoke to no one. A man who kept moving rarely had to remember the things he lost. Then he saw the paper nailed to the widow's gate. It snapped hard in the wind, white against weathered wood. Cole nudged his horse closer. Anna Whitlock stood beside the gate with both hands wrapped tight around the post. Barefoot in the frost. Hair loose from a night without sleep. The paper cracked again in the wind. A banker stood nearby, coat buttoned tight, eyes tired but unmoved. "Debt comes due at sunrise, Mrs. Whitlock." Anna Whitlock's voice came out thin but steady. "My husband died 3 months ago. The law still counts the days." The wind rattled the loose board on the gate. Creak. Creak. Cole Turner sat silent in the saddle. He had heard this kind of story before. Widow. Debt. A ranch too small to fight men with ledgers and locks. He should have ridden past. Most men would. The banker pulled a small watch from his vest. The metal lid clicked open. "Sun's coming." Anna Whitlock closed her eyes. The frost on the ground glittered faint gold as the first light slid over the prairie. She whispered something so quiet the wind almost swallowed it. "Samuel. I tried." Cole Turner exhaled slowly. Leather creaked as he swung down from the saddle. Boots struck the frozen dirt. The sound carried in the still morning. The banker glanced up. Cole walked forward without hurry. No anger. No speech. Just a quiet man stepping between a widow and a nailed piece of paper. The banker frowned. "This doesn't concern you, mister." Cole Turner reached into his coat. Coins slid into his palm with a soft metal clink. 1, 2, 3. The sound of silver stacked against silver filled the cold air. The banker's eyes narrowed. "That amount won't." Cole dropped the last coin into the man's gloved hand. The weight pulled the banker's arm slightly down. Silence followed. Even the wind seemed to pause. The banker counted slowly. Coins tapping together. Metal against metal. When he finished, the man looked up again. His voice had changed. "The debt is settled." Anna Whitlock opened her eyes. The paper on the gate tore free as the banker pulled the nail loose. The wind caught it and carried it down the empty street. Cole Turner turned back toward his horse. Saddle leather groaned as he mounted. He never looked at the widow. Never asked her name. A man who kept riding did not wait for gratitude. Hooves thudded softly against the dirt as he started toward the open prairie. Behind him a second set of hooves suddenly struck the road. Fast. Determined. Anna Whitlock rode hard from the gate, breath sharp in the cold air. "Wait." Cole Turner slowed but did not turn. The wind lifted her voice across the morning. "You paid my debt, cowboy." Her horse pulled alongside his. The reins trembled slightly in her hands. But a woman doesn't let a stranger buy her future and just ride away. The prairie wind sighed across the empty land. Anna Whitlock lifted her chin. "So if you're riding home." She steadied the saddle. "Then I reckon I am too." The prairie opened wide beyond Dry Creek. Cold wind swept low over the grass. Hooves drummed a steady rhythm across the frozen ground. Cole Turner rode without looking back. Behind him another set of hooves followed. Closer now. Persistent. Anna Whitlock's horse breathed hard in the cold air as she pulled alongside him again. "You planning to outride me all day?" Cole kept his eyes on the long pale line of horizon. "Roads wide. That your way of saying I can ride it too?" Silence answered her. The saddle leather groaned beneath Cole's weight as his horse climbed a shallow ridge. Below them the land stretched empty. No towns. No fences. Only a lonely cabin far out on the prairie. Anna studied it. "That yours?" Cole nodded once. They rode the last mile without words. The wind scraped dry grass against the frozen earth. A loose shutter on the cabin banged softly. Bang. Bang. The sound echoed across the yard like a slow heartbeat. Cole dismounted. Boots struck the dirt with a dull thud. His horse snorted steam into the air. Anna slid down from her saddle. Her boots touched ground more lightly. She looked at the cabin. Weathered boards. A sagging porch. One lonely window staring out across miles of quiet land. "You live here alone?" Cole tied his reins to the rail. "Yes." The porch boards creaked under his weight as he climbed the steps. Anna followed. The boards answered with another long groan. Inside the cabin the air felt colder than the wind outside. A stone fireplace crouched against the wall. Cold ashes slept inside it. Dust drifted across a table that held only a tin cup and a dull knife. Cole stepped in first. Floorboards creaked beneath his boots. Anna closed the door behind them. The latch clicked softly. Silence settled thick around the room. Cole moved to the hearth. A match scratched across stone. The flame flickered weak and yellow. Soon dry kindling snapped and popped as the fire began to grow. Warm light spread slowly across the cabin walls. Anna rubbed her hands together near the flames. The fire crackled brighter. "You don't talk much." Cole fed another piece of wood into the fire. "Talking doesn't fix much." Anna watched the flames dance. "Sometimes it fixes enough." Cole poured water from a small tin jug into the cup. The metal clink echoed in the quiet. "You can stay till morning." Anna looked up. "That all?" "That's the offer." She smiled faintly. "I rode 20 miles to get here." Cole shrugged. "Road goes both ways." The fire snapped loudly. Outside the wind shoved against the walls. Anna glanced toward the window. "You always this welcoming?" Cole leaned back in his chair. "Most folks don't follow me home." Anna Whitlock stood slowly. Dust shifted beneath her boots as she crossed the room. She lifted the crooked shutter and pushed it open. Cold air spilled inside. The prairie rolled silent under the pale sky. Her voice came softer now. "My husband built a ranch with his hands." She closed the shutter again. "The debt men took it piece by piece." Cole stared into the fire. "Men like that always do." Anna turned toward him. "You paid them without even asking why." Cole answered without looking up. "Didn't matter why." The logs shifted. Flames flared bright. Anna's eyes reflected the firelight. "You must hate injustice." Cole's jaw tightened slightly. "No." Another long silence. Wind rattled the cabin roof. A loose board outside knocked twice. Knock. Knock. Anna crossed her arms. "Then why help me?" Cole leaned forward and pushed the iron poker into the fire. Sparks lifted into the air. "Because I was there." Anna studied him. "Just that?" Cole nodded once. She exhaled slowly. "Well, I don't take charity." Cole said nothing. Anna reached for the broom leaning beside the door. Dust lifted as she began sweeping the floor. The straw bristles scratched softly across the wood. Cole glanced up. "You don't have to do that." She kept sweeping. "I do." The broom pushed dirt into a small pile. This place looks like winter moved in and never left. Cole watched quietly. The scrape of the broom filled the room. Noise replacing silence. Warmth replacing cold. Anna carried the dust outside. The door opened with a creak. Wind rushed in again. By the time she returned, the fire burned steady. Cole had set a small pot above the flames. Water simmered with a low bubbling sound. Anna hung her coat near the hearth. Steam rose from the cloth as it warmed. She looked around the cabin again. "You got flour?" Cole pointed toward a small sack on the shelf. Anna lifted it. "Good." Cole frowned slightly. "What for?" Anna poured a little flour into a tin bowl. "For bread." She added water from the pot. The spoon tapped against metal as she stirred. Cole watched the motion. Slow. Careful. Almost peaceful. "You cook often?" "Every day." Cole leaned back again. "Not here." Anna kneaded the dough with steady hands. The fire popped loudly. Soon the smell of baking bread drifted through the cabin. Warm. Comforting. Cole inhaled slowly. The scent pulled something distant through his memory. Anna noticed. "Been a while since you smelled real food?" Cole stared into the flames. "Been a while since anyone made it." The bread finished baking. Anna broke the loaf in half. Steam rose into the warm air. She handed a piece across the table. Cole accepted it. The crust cracked softly between his fingers. For a long moment neither of them spoke. Only the fire crackled. And the wind faded beyond the walls. Then a distant sound reached the cabin. Faint. Far away. Hooves. Cole's head lifted slightly. Anna froze. The hoofbeats echoed across the prairie. Slow. Searching. Cole stood. His chair legs scraped against the floorboards. Anna's voice lowered. "You expecting company?" Cole moved toward the window. Outside the land remained empty. But the wind carried the echo again. Hooves striking frozen earth somewhere beyond the hills. Cole closed the shutter. The latch clicked firmly into place. The cabin returned to quiet. But the warmth of the fire no longer chased away the cold completely. Anna set the remaining bread on the table. Her voice came barely above a whisper. "They found me sooner than I hoped." Cole looked toward the door. The wind rattled the frame. Far across the prairie the hoofbeats faded again. But the silence that followed felt different now. Heavy. Waiting. Morning light crept slowly through the cabin window. Gold against frost. The fire in the hearth had burned down to a bed of quiet coals. Cole Turner woke before the sun cleared the ridge. He sat up in the chair where he had slept. The floorboards creaked under his boots as he stood. Cold air still lingered in the corners of the room. But the smell of bread remained. Warm. Faint. Human. Anna Whitlock already stood near the hearth. She knelt beside the fire, coaxing the coals back to life. A small flame caught. Then another. Wood snapped softly as the fire returned. Cole watched in silence. "You sleep at all?" Anna brushed ash from her hands. "A little." Her eyes drifted toward the window. The hoofbeats stopped sometime before dawn. Cole crossed the room. The kettle rattled softly as he lifted it. Water sloshed inside. "You hear riders often out here?" "Sometimes." Anna gave a small nod. "That the kind of answer that means yes?" Cole poured water into a tin cup. Steam rose slowly into the cold air. "It means riders usually pass." Anna folded her arms. "And the ones who don't?" Cole drank from the cup. His voice stayed calm. "They make trouble." The fire cracked loudly. Outside the wind rolled across the prairie grass. Anna looked down at the floor. "I didn't want to bring that to your door." Cole set the cup down. Metal clicked against wood. "You didn't." Anna studied him. "You're sure?" Cole shrugged slightly. "Trouble rides everywhere." The cabin settled into quiet again. Only the fire popping. Only the wind brushing the walls. Anna moved to the table. She wiped the surface clean with a cloth from her saddlebag. Dust disappeared beneath steady hands. Cole watched her. "You plan to clean the whole place?" Anna kept working. "If I'm staying the day, yes." "You said you'd leave in the morning." Anna paused. The cloth stopped moving. "That before I heard those riders." She lifted her chin. "I won't ride blind into men looking for me." Cole nodded once. "Fair enough." The wind rattled the loose shutter. Tap. Tap. Anna crossed the room and pushed it open. Cold air rushed in. The prairie rolled wide and pale beneath the morning sun. She leaned on the frame and scanned the horizon. Nothing moved. No riders. No dust. Only quiet land. Anna exhaled slowly. "Maybe I imagined it." Cole shook his head. "You didn't." She turned back toward him. "How do you know?" Cole stepped onto the porch. The boards creaked beneath his weight. He crouched near the dirt. Fresh tracks marked the ground near the fence line. Horse prints. Deep. Heavy. Anna stepped beside him. The wind tugged at her hair. "How many?" Cole studied the marks. 3. Anna's shoulders tightened. They didn't come close to the house. No. They were looking. Cole stood again. Boot heels grinding softly against the dirt. "Looks like they circled once." Anna stared at the tracks. Then out toward the hills. Her voice dropped. "They'll come back." The wind lifted dust across the yard. The loose shutter banged again behind them. Bang. Bang. Cole turned toward the barn. The wide doors leaned crooked on their hinges. He walked across the yard. Anna followed. The barn smelled of hay and old leather. A horse stamped once in its stall. The hollow sound echoed through the wooden beams. Cole checked the saddle straps. Pulled a cinch tight. Anna leaned against the doorway. "You thinking of riding me out?" Cole shook his head. "Not yet." "Why not?" Cole lifted a small sack of grain and poured it into the trough. The kernels rattled like tiny stones. "If they're hunting you." He paused. "They expect you to run." Anna steadied his face. "So you want me to stay?" "For now." Anna smiled faintly. "That the closest thing you said to hospitality?" Cole didn't answer. The horse snorted. Anna stepped farther into the barn. Her boots brushed loose straw. "You know what I notice about this place?" Cole kept working. "What?" "It's quiet." "That's the point." Anna shook her head. "No." She tapped the stall rail with her knuckles. The hollow knock echoed through the barn. "It's lonely quiet." Cole glanced up. Anna met his eyes. "Different thing." The wind pushed through the open barn doors. The rafters creaked overhead. Anna looked toward the saddle resting on a wooden peg. A small tin box peeked from her saddlebag. Cole noticed. "Something valuable in there?" Anna stiffened slightly. "Just papers." Cole turned back to the horse. "Men don't chase papers." Anna stepped forward and lifted the bag quickly. Her fingers closed around the tin box. "They do if the papers matter." The barn fell silent again. Only the horse breathing. Only wind slipping through the cracks in the boards. Cole rested his hand on the stall rail. "You want to tell me what those riders want?" Anna hesitated. Then shook her head. "Not yet." Cole nodded once. "That's your choice." Anna slipped the tin box back into the bag. But her eyes drifted toward the hills again. The prairie seemed peaceful in the bright morning sun. Birds moved through the tall grass. A distant hawk cried high above. For a moment it almost felt safe. Then the faintest echo rolled across the wind. Hoofbeats. Far away. Anna heard them first. Her hand tightened around the saddle strap. Cole stepped toward the barn door. The sound faded, then returned again. Slow. Searching. Anna whispered quietly. They're closer today. Cole stared across the empty prairie. The wind carried the sound once more. Hooves striking frozen ground somewhere beyond the ridge. Cole's voice stayed calm. Then we have a little time left. Anna looked at him. And after that? Cole rested his hand on the stall rail. Wood creaked under the pressure. After that. He glanced toward the house. We see what kind of men they are. Evening crept slowly across the prairie. Cold blue shadows stretched long between the fences. The wind that had whispered all day finally began to settle. Inside the cabin the fire burned bright. Logs snapped and shifted in the hearth. Warmth pushed gently against the chill creeping through the walls. Anna Whitlock stood at the table with sleeves rolled high. Flour dusted her hands. A small bowl of dough rested beneath her palms. She pressed. Folded. Turned. The steady rhythm filled the quiet room. Cole Turner sat near the fire sharpening a small knife. Steel whispered across the whetstone. Slow. Patient. Neither spoke for a long while. Only the fire crackled. Only the soft scrape of steel and dough. Anna finally glanced toward him. You always eat alone? Cole didn't look up. Usually. That sounds miserable. Steel slid once more along stone. Makes for fewer arguments. Anna smiled faintly. People argue when they care. Cole turned the blade. Tested the edge with his thumb. People argue when they stay too long. The fire popped sharply. Anna brushed flour from her hands. Well, tonight you've got company. Cole shrugged. Tonight. She placed the dough into a small iron pan. The smell of rising bread slowly warmed the room. Outside the last light faded behind the hills. The prairie darkened. The loose shutter knocked softly. Tap. Tap. Anna looked toward the window again. Her eyes lingered there. Cole noticed. You expect them tonight? Anna's voice stayed quiet. I expect them eventually. Cole slid the knife into its sheath. The leather clicked softly. You've got a head start. Anna turned back toward the fire. That's what I thought when I left my ranch. The flames flickered across her face. But men like Victor Hale don't let things go. Cole leaned forward slightly. Hale. Anna nodded. Rancher with more land than he can ride in a week. Cole had heard the name before. Men whispered it in towns. Always quiet. Always cautious. What does he want from you? Anna hesitated. The fire snapped loudly between them. She reached for the iron pan and slid it closer to the heat. The smell of baking bread thickened. Land. Cole shook his head once. He already owns half the territory south of Dry Creek. Anna met his eyes. Not the peace he wants. Cole leaned back again. The chair creaked under his weight. What's so special about your ranch? Anna wiped her hands slowly on a cloth. Her gaze drifted toward the saddlebag resting near the door. Cole followed the glance. You keep looking at that bag. Anna didn't answer right away. The bread crust cracked faintly as it baked. Warmth filled the cabin. But the silence turned tight. Finally she spoke. My husband found something. Cole waited. Anna lowered her voice. Something Hale has been hunting for years. The fire shifted. A log collapsed inward with a burst of sparks. What kind of something? Anna crossed the room. Her boots creaked across the boards. She crouched beside the saddlebag. Her fingers hesitated over the clasp. Then she shook her head. Not yet. Cole watched quietly. You trust me enough to follow me here. Anna stood again. But not enough to hand you the trouble I'm carrying. Cole nodded. That's fair. The bread finished baking with a soft hollow crack. Anna lifted the pan. Steam rose into the air. The smell filled the whole cabin. Warm. Rich. Human. She broke the loaf in half. The crust crunched softly. Cole accepted a piece. For a moment they ate in silence. The fire glowed deep orange. Outside, the prairie night grew colder. Anna chewed slowly. "You know something strange, Cole Turner?" "What's that?" "This place doesn't feel lonely anymore." Cole looked toward the fire. It was quiet before. Anna smiled slightly. "Quiet and lonely aren't the same thing." Cole didn't answer. The wind brushed the cabin walls again. But softer now. Like the land breathing. Then a sudden sound broke the calm. A distant metal clink. Both of them froze. Anna's hand stopped halfway to the table. Cole turned his head slowly toward the door. The sound came again. Faint. Horse tack. Somewhere outside the yard. Cole rose. The chair legs scraped quietly against the floor. Anna whispered, "They're here." Cole lifted a lantern from the shelf. The flame inside flickered as he opened the door. Cold night air rushed inside. The lantern light spilled across the yard. Empty. Still. But the horses in the barn shifted nervously. Hooves scraping wood. Cole stepped onto the porch. The boards creaked beneath him. He raised the lantern higher. The prairie stretched black and silent beyond the fence. No riders. No voices. Only wind brushing through dry grass. Anna stepped into the doorway behind him. "You see them?" Cole shook his head slowly. "No." But his eyes moved toward the hill beyond the cabin. The lantern flame trembled in the wind. On the ridge line, faint shapes shifted against the starlight. 3 riders. Watching. Not moving. Anna's breath caught quietly. "They found us." Cole lowered the lantern slightly. The light flickered across his calm face. "They're not riding in." Anna whispered. "Why not?" Cole studied the dark figures on the hill. "They're measuring." The wind lifted across the prairie again, carrying the distant sound of leather creaking. Anna stood very still. Her voice barely carried through the night. "Victor Hale's men." Cole rested one hand against the porch rail. Wood creaked softly beneath his grip. The riders remained on the hill. Silent. Waiting. The fire behind them crackled warmly through the open door. But the night beyond the yard had turned cold again. And the quiet was no longer peaceful. It was the quiet that comes before men decide what to take. Morning came hard and pale across the prairie. Cold light slid over the hills. The frost clung stubborn to the grass. Inside the cabin the fire still glowed low. A single log cracked softly in the hearth. Cole Turner was already awake. He sat near the window, boots planted wide, watching the ridge where the riders had waited through the night. The prairie looked empty again. No horses. No shadows. Only wind brushing the frozen ground. Behind him Anna Whitlock moved quietly at the stove. A small pot rattled as water began to warm. The faint scent of coffee drifted through the cabin. Warm. Steady. Human. Anna glanced toward the window. "They gone?" Cole didn't answer right away. The floorboard creaked as he shifted slightly. "Maybe." Anna poured the water into 2 tin cups. Steam curled slowly into the cold air. She carried one to him. The metal clicked softly as he accepted it. Men like that don't ride all night just to leave. Cole lifted the cup. The heat warmed his hands. They were watching. Anna leaned against the wall. "That makes it worse." The wind rattled the loose shutter again. Tap. Tap. Cole stood. The chair legs scraped across the floor. He stepped onto the porch. The boards groaned under his boots. The morning air bit sharp against his face. The yard lay quiet. But the dirt near the fence told a different story. Tracks. More than before. Cole crouched slowly. Fresh prints pressed deep into the frozen ground. 5 horses now. Anna stepped outside behind him. Her breath hung white in the air. That's new. Cole nodded once. They came back before sunrise. Anna scanned the hills. Nothing moved. They're getting bold. Cole stood again. Or patient. The wind lifted dust across the yard. A loose hinge on the barn door squealed faintly. Anna hugged her coat tighter. You ever dealt with men like Hale before? Cole stared across the prairie. Once. Anna waited. Cole finally spoke again. They burned the ranch to clear land. The wind carried his words away. Anna swallowed slowly. And nobody stopped them? Cole's eyes stayed on the hills. Not then. Anna fell quiet. The cabin door creaked open behind them. The fire inside popped softly. Warm air drifted onto the porch. Anna looked back at the glow of the hearth. That's what they want. Cole followed her gaze. Your ranch. Anna shook her head. No. Her voice lowered. They want what was found on it. Cole studied her face. Then tell me what it is. Anna hesitated. Her fingers brushed the saddlebag resting against the wall. The small tin box inside clinked faintly. I will. She met his eyes. But not out here. Cole nodded. They stepped back inside. The door shut with a dull thud. The warmth returned slowly. Anna placed the tin box on the table. The metal lid clicked open. Inside rested folded papers. Old parchment. Edges worn thin. Cole stepped closer. Anna unfolded one sheet carefully. Ink lines stretched across the page. Survey marks. Boundary numbers. Cole frowned. A land map? Anna pointed to a section near the creek line. Not just land. Her finger traced several marks scratched into the parchment. Small symbols. Numbers beside them. Cole leaned closer. Those look like claim points. Anna nodded. My husband worked survey crews before we married. Cole glanced up. And? Anna folded the map halfway. These marks show land that doesn't belong to Victor Hale. The fire snapped sharply. Cole's voice turned quiet. But he owns it anyway. Anna nodded again. Every ranch marked here belonged to small families. Cole studied the paper again. They were forced out. Anna's jaw tightened. Or buried. The room fell silent. Only the fire breathing slowly in the hearth. Cole rested his hands on the table. So your husband found proof? Anna closed the tin box softly. Yes. Cole exhaled slowly. And Hale knows. Anna looked toward the window. He suspected. Cole's eyes narrowed slightly. And now he's certain. A sudden sound broke the stillness outside. Hooves. Close. Both of them turned toward the door. The horse stopped in the yard. Leather creaked. Spurs clinked faintly. Cole reached the door first. His hand rested near the rifle leaning beside the frame. Anna whispered behind him. One rider. Cole opened the door slowly. Cold air rushed in. A man sat on a dark horse beyond the fence. Wide hat. Long coat. His smile carried easily across the yard. Mornin', Mr. Turner. Cole stepped onto the porch. The boards groaned beneath his boots. The rider tipped his hat politely. Name's Daniel Briggs. His voice stayed smooth. Victor Hale asked me to ride out. Anna appeared in the doorway behind Cole. Briggs glanced at her. His smile widened slightly. Well now. There you are, Mrs. Whitlock. Anna's voice stayed firm. I'm not riding back with you. Briggs chuckled softly. The sound carried cold in the morning air. Not asking. His horse shifted. Hooves scraping dirt. Briggs leaned slightly forward in the saddle. Mr. Hale simply wants a conversation. Cole stood silent. Briggs' eyes drifted toward the cabin. Toward the barn. Toward the land beyond. Nice place you've got here, Turner. The wind brushed across the yard. Cold again. Sharp again. Briggs smiled once more. Be a shame if trouble found it. The yard fell silent after Daniel Briggs spoke. Cold wind slid across the dirt. Cole Turner stood on the porch without moving. Behind him the fire cracked softly inside the cabin. Warmth at his back. Winter in front of him. Briggs shifted in the saddle. Leather creaked. His horse stamped once, impatient. Victor Hale is a generous man, Briggs said calmly. He prefers things settled without unpleasantness. Cole rested one hand against the porch rail. Wood groaned softly. You done talking? Briggs smiled again. A thin smile. Not quite. He glanced toward the barn. Then the pasture. Then the hills behind the cabin. Mr. Hale was surprised when Mrs. Whitlock's debt vanished yesterday. The wind rattled the loose shutter. Tap. Tap. Briggs leaned forward slightly. Imagine his curiosity when he learned who paid it. Cole said nothing. The silence stretched. Anna stepped onto the porch behind him. The boards creaked under her boots. Briggs dipped his hat again. Mrs. Whitlock. Anna's voice stayed steady. I told you already. I'm not riding back. Briggs chuckled softly. No one asked you to ride. His eyes drifted toward Cole. Mr. Hale simply wants the map. The word landed hard. Even the wind seemed to pause. Anna stiffened behind Cole. Cole's voice stayed calm. What map? Briggs laughed. A low sound. You strike me as a man who doesn't waste time pretending. He reached into his coat. Pulled out a folded paper. The parchment fluttered once in the breeze. A copy of the land survey your husband worked on. Anna's breath caught. Briggs watched her reaction closely. Funny thing about maps. He held the paper loosely. They show where things belong. The paper snapped softly in the wind. Mr. Hale believed some lines were drawn incorrectly. Cole's hand tightened slightly on the porch rail. Wood creaked again. Briggs' smile faded. So he asked me to bring the widow home. Anna stepped forward. The wind tugged her coat. I'm not going anywhere with you. Briggs shrugged. That's unfortunate. He folded the paper again. Slowly. Carefully. Then slipped it back into his coat. The prairie fell quiet again. A hawk cried somewhere high above the hills. Briggs studied Cole now. Tell me something, Turner. Cole waited. Why help her? Cole's voice stayed low. Because I felt like it. Briggs nodded slowly. Bad reason. Cole didn't respond. Briggs leaned down and brushed dust from his glove. You see. Men who cross Victor Hale usually regret it. The wind rose slightly. The barn door creaked on its hinge. Anna glanced toward the ridge line. No riders. Not yet. Briggs noticed the look. Oh, don't worry. He smiled again. I didn't come alone. Cole's eyes lifted toward the hills. Still empty. Briggs continued. They're just keeping their distance. The horse shifted beneath him. Hooves grinding softly in the dirt. Victor Hale doesn't like rushing things. Anna folded her arms tightly. He likes stealing. Briggs laughed again. Such a harsh word. The fire inside the cabin popped loudly. Warm light flickered through the doorway. Briggs glanced at it. That looks comfortable. His eyes drifted back to Cole. You've got a peaceful life here. Cole answered quietly. So far. Briggs nodded once. That depends on you. The wind lifted dust across the yard. A long moment passed. Then Briggs reached down and picked up a small stone from the ground. He tossed it lightly toward the barn. The rock clattered loudly against the wood. The horse inside snorted in alarm. Anna flinched. Briggs watched her carefully. Small noises can start big problems. Cole's voice hardened slightly. You done yet? Briggs dipped his hat again. For today. He turned his horse slowly toward the open prairie. Then paused. One more thing. Cole waited. Briggs looked back over his shoulder. Victor Hale will ride out soon. The wind brushed across the field again. Cold. Sharp. Briggs continued calmly. And when he does. He nodded toward the cabin. He won't be asking. And his jaw tightened. Cole stood still. Briggs gave the reins a gentle pull. The horse stepped forward. Hooves thudding softly across the dirt. But he stopped once more near the fence. Turned again. His voice carried clearly across the yard. You might want to think about which side of this story you're standing on, Mr. Turner. Cole didn't answer. Briggs smiled faintly. Because when Victor Hale arrives. The rider tipped his hat once more. He usually leaves with what belongs to him. The horse moved again. Hooves fading slowly down the trail. The wind returned. The loose shutter tapped against the wall. Tap. Tap. Anna exhaled slowly behind Cole. They know. Cole nodded. Yeah. The prairie stretched quiet again. But the quiet felt different now. Heavy. Waiting. Anna's voice lowered. What are you going to do? Cole watched the distant trail where Briggs disappeared. His hand rested on the porch rail. Wood creaked under his grip. First. He turned slightly toward the barn. We make sure the horses are ready. The fire inside the cabin crackled warmly. But beyond the yard the prairie wind carried the faintest echo again. Hoofbeats. Far away. More than one this time. The sun slid low behind the western hills. Cold light stretched across the prairie like thin steel. Cole Turner stood beside the fence mending a broken rail. The hammer struck slow and steady. Thud. Thud. Each blow echoed across the empty land. Anna Whitlock carried a bucket from the well. Water sloshed quietly inside. The barn door creaked as she stepped through. Horses shifted in the stalls. Leather tack rattled softly against wood. For a moment the ranch felt almost ordinary. Work. Noise. Breathing animals. Human movement. The kind of life that pushes loneliness away. Anna poured grain into the trough. The horse lowered its head. Crunching filled the barn. Warm breath rose in the cool air. She rested her hand against the stall rail. You're fixing fences like we plan to stay. Cole drove another nail. The hammer rang again. Fence keeps cattle in. Anna leaned slightly against the rail. And men out? Cole glanced toward the hills. Sometimes. The wind brushed through the open barn door. Cold again. Carrying dust across the yard. Anna stepped back outside. Cole worked another minute. Then the hammer stopped. He stood still. Listening. Far away. A faint rumble. Hooves. Not one. Several. Anna heard it too. Her eyes lifted toward the ridge. They're coming. Cole set the hammer down. The metal clink sounded loud in the quiet yard. The hoofbeats grew clearer. Steady. Measured. A thin cloud of dust appeared on the far trail. Anna counted shapes moving through the haze. 5. Cole nodded. Briggs brought friends. The riders slowed as they approached the fence line. Horses snorted clouds of breath. Leather creaked. Spurs chimed softly. Daniel Briggs rode at the front again. His smile returned the moment he saw them. Well now. He tipped his hat casually. Looks like you're settling in. Cole rested both hands on the top rail. The wood groaned under his weight. What do you want now? Briggs shrugged. Friendly visit. Behind him 4 riders spread slowly along the fence. Their horses pawed the dirt. Eyes watching. Anna stepped closer to Cole. Her voice stayed calm. You already delivered your message. Briggs nodded politely. True. He leaned forward in the saddle. But Mr. Hale sent another. The wind rattled the barn door behind them. Creak. Creak. Briggs lifted his hand slightly. One of the riders tossed something over the fence. The object landed in the dust near Cole's boots. A folded cloth. Cole bent slowly. Picked it up. The fabric felt stiff. Dark stains marked the surface. Anna's breath caught. Cole unfolded the cloth. Inside lay a small wooden sign. Burnt letters carved deep into the board. Property claimed. Victor Hale. The wind lifted the cloth again. Anna whispered quietly. That sign was on our gate. Briggs nodded. Mr. Hale thought you might want it back. Cole folded the cloth again. Dropped it into the dirt. Briggs watched carefully. Here's the situation, Turner. He gestured toward the prairie. This land of yours is peaceful. The riders behind him shifted in their saddles. Leather groaned. But peaceful places tend to attract accidents. Anna stepped forward slightly. Her voice sharpened. Is that a threat? Briggs smiled. No. A pause. Just observation. The wind brushed across the yard again. Cole's hand tightened on the rail. Wood creaked. Briggs leaned down from the saddle. You're a smart man. He nodded toward the cabin. You helped the widow. That was kind. His voice lowered. But kindness can become expensive. Cole's eyes stayed fixed on him. What's the price? Briggs didn't hesitate. The map. Anna stiffened. Cole glanced at her once. Briggs noticed. His smile widened. You see the problem? He tapped the saddle horn lightly. Metal rang softly. Victor Hale believes the map belongs to him. Anna spoke through clenched teeth. It belongs to the people he stole land from. Briggs chuckled. That's not how ownership works out here. One of the riders laughed quietly behind him. The sound felt ugly in the cold air. Cole stepped away from the fence. Dust shifted under his boots. Conversation's over. Briggs sighed. I was hoping you'd say that. He turned his horse slightly. The riders behind him moved too, closing the line along the fence. Anna noticed the motion. They're boxing the yard. Cole's voice stayed calm. Yeah. Briggs lifted both hands lightly. Relax. He pointed toward the barn. We're not here to start anything today. The riders slowed their horses. But they didn't leave. They simply watched. Waiting. Briggs leaned closer across the fence. One more thing before we ride. Cole didn't answer. Briggs spoke anyway. Victor Hale isn't angry. He smiled faintly. He's curious. The wind carried dust between them. Briggs continued. A man like Hale doesn't chase land without reason. His eyes drifted toward the saddlebag hanging near the barn door. That map leads somewhere. Anna's voice dropped. You don't know what you're talking about. Briggs smiled again. Oh, I think we do. Cole stepped forward. Enough that the horse snorted nervously. Briggs straightened in the saddle. Careful, Turner. Cole's voice stayed quiet. You've said your piece. Briggs steadied him for a long moment. Then nodded. Fair. He pulled the reins. The horse turned slowly away from the fence. The other riders followed. Hooves thudded softly across the dirt. But before leaving the yard, Briggs looked back once more. His voice carried clearly across the cold evening air. Victor Hale rides tomorrow. The wind lifted across the prairie. Briggs' final words followed it. And he doesn't like waiting. Dawn came colder than the morning before. Frost clung thick to the fence rails. The prairie lay silent beneath the pale sky. Cole Turner stood in the yard beside the well. A rifle rested across his hands. The metal looked dull in the weak sunlight. Anna Whitlock stepped out onto the porch. The boards creaked beneath her boots. She carried the small tin box against her chest. Inside the barn a horse stamped nervously. Leather rattled. The wind brushed across the empty field. Anna looked toward the ridge. "They'll come soon." Cole nodded once. "Yeah." The fire inside the cabin still burned. Warm light flickered through the doorway. But the yard felt colder now. Heavy. Waiting. Anna stepped down into the dirt. Her breath drifted wide in the air. "You don't have to stay." Cole kept watching the hills. "You don't have to leave." Anna shook her head slowly. "If Victor Hale takes that map." Her voice tightened. "He keeps stealing land from families that can't fight him." Cole shifted the rifle slightly. The wood creaked in his grip. "That's not happening here." Anna steadied him for a moment. "You sure about that?" Cole answered quietly. "I am now." The wind carried a faint sound across the prairie. Hooves. Many this time. Anna heard them first. Her hand tightened around the tin box. "They're coming." Cole lifted the rifle and rested it across the porch rail. The metal clicked softly. Dust rose on the far trail. 6 riders appeared over the ridge. Victor Hale rode at the front. Tall. Straight in the saddle. His coat moved slowly in the wind. The other riders followed behind him like shadows. The horses approached the fence line. Hooves thudded deep into the frozen ground. No one spoke for a long moment. Victor Hale studied the yard. The cabin. The barn. Finally his eyes settled on Cole. "You're the man who interfered." Cole didn't answer. Victor Hale's voice carried smooth and calm. "I appreciate courage." The wind rattled the loose shutter again. Tap. Tap. Victor Hale tipped his hat slightly. But courage without reason usually ends poorly. Anna stepped forward beside Cole. "You took my ranch." Victor Hale barely glanced at her. "I acquired it legally." Anna held the tin box tighter. "You forced people off their land." Victor Hale sighed lightly. "This conversation grows tiresome." His eyes returned to Cole. "You have something that belongs to me." Cole's voice stayed steady. "No." Victor Hale smiled faintly. "The widow carries a map." His gaze shifted to the tin box. "That map leads to several claims." Anna's jaw tightened. "Claims you stole." Victor Hale ignored her again. He addressed Cole. "You paid her debt." "Yes." Victor Hale nodded once. "A generous mistake." The riders behind him shifted. Leather creaked. Spurs chimed softly. Victor Hale continued. "Hand me the map." The wind lifted dust across the yard. Cole rested his hands on the rifle. "No." Silence followed. Heavy and long. Victor Hale studied him carefully. Then he smiled. "You understand the situation, Mr. Turner?" Cole waited. Victor Hale gestured toward the land. "You live alone." His hand swept slowly across the ranch. No neighbors for miles. The horse beneath him snorted. Victor Hale leaned slightly forward. "If this place burned tonight." He shrugged gently. "No one would know why." Anna's breath caught. Cole remained still. Victor Hale's voice lowered. "Give me the map." Cole finally spoke. "Not happening." The riders shifted again. One man rested his hand near his pistol. Victor Hale watched the motion. Then lifted one finger slightly. The rider froze. Victor Hale smiled again. "I prefer civilized solutions." Cole stepped away from the porch rail. His boots crunched lightly in the frost. He reached toward Anna. She looked at him once. Then handed him the tin box. Victor Hale's eyes brightened slightly. Cole opened the lid slowly. The metal hinge clicked. He removed the folded map. The parchment rustled softly in the wind. Victor Hale leaned forward in the saddle. "Wise choice." Cole held the paper up. The wind snapped its edges. Anna watched silently. Victor Hale stretched out his gloved hand. "Bring it here." Cole looked down at the map, then toward the riders behind Hale, then back to Hale himself. Finally he spoke. "You said you like civilized solutions." Victor Hale nodded. "Yes." Cole lifted the map higher, so every rider could see it. The wind whipped the parchment loudly. Cole's voice carried across the yard. "This map shows every ranch Victor Hale took from families who couldn't fight him." The riders shifted uneasily. Victor Hale's smile faded. Cole continued. "It shows who owned them first." Anna stepped beside him. Her voice joined his. "My husband wrote their names here." Cole pointed to the marks scratched across the page. "Proof." Victor Hale's horse stamped hard. Dust lifted around its hooves. His voice hardened. "Give me that map." Cole folded the parchment slowly. "No." Victor Hale's patience broke. He lifted his hand sharply. Two riders moved forward, hands dropping toward their pistols. Cole moved faster. The rifle rose. The hammer snapped back with a sharp click. Cold sound in the quiet morning. Victor Hale's horse reared slightly. The riders froze. Cole's voice stayed calm. "Next man who touches a gun." The rifle remained steady. "Falls off that horse." The wind moved across the prairie again. Cold. Sharp. Victor Hale stared at him. The silence stretched tight between them. Finally Victor Hale lowered his hand. His riders stopped. The ranch yard stood frozen in the pale morning light. And for the first time, Victor Hale looked uncertain. The wind moved slowly across the ranch yard. Cold morning light rested on the frost. No one spoke. Cole Turner held the rifle steady against the porch rail. The metal glinted dull beneath the rising sun. Victor Hale sat rigid in the saddle. His riders waited behind him. Leather creaked. A horse snorted softly. Anna Whitlock stood beside Cole. The folded map rested in his hand. The prairie seemed to hold its breath. Victor Hale finally exhaled. "You're making a mistake, Turner." Cole didn't move. The rifle remained pointed low but ready. Victor Hale glanced toward the parchment. "That map belongs to me." Cole answered quietly. "It belongs to the people whose names are written on it." The wind lifted the paper slightly. Anna stepped forward. Her boots pressed into the frozen dirt. "My husband surveyed every ranch in this valley." Her voice carried clearly across the yard. "He wrote down the original claims." Victor Hale's jaw tightened. Anna continued. "Families forced out when your men arrived." The riders shifted uneasily. Spurs chimed softly. Victor Hale's voice hardened. "Careful with your accusations." Anna pointed to the map. "My husband kept proof." Cole unfolded the parchment again. The paper snapped in the cold air. Ink lines stretched across the surface. Names written beside each boundary. Cole lifted the map higher, so everyone can see it. The riders leaned forward slightly. Victor Hale watched them carefully. Anna spoke again. "These names belong to men who vanished." She pointed to the first line. Thomas Calder. Another Mark. Elijah Boone. Another. Martha Granger. The wind whispered through the grass. Victor Hale's voice turned colder. "Stories." Anna shook her head. "No." Her finger moved across the parchment. "These marks show when your men claimed the land." Cole tapped a section of the map. "The dates are here." Victor Hale shifted in the saddle. His horse pawed the dirt. Cole spoke again. "Funny thing about maps." The wind rustled the parchment. "They don't lie." The riders behind Hale looked at each other. One man lowered his eyes. Another tugged nervously at his reins. Victor Hale noticed. His voice rose slightly. "You men work for me." No one answered. The silence deepened. Anna stepped closer to the fence. Every ranch here belonged to a family. Her voice softened. They were told the land had been claimed already. Cole pointed to the map again. But it hadn't. The wind lifted dust across the yard. Victor Hale's patience cracked. You think waving paper changes anything? Cole met his eyes. It changes what your men know. One rider shifted uncomfortably. His horse snorted. Victor Hale noticed again. He turned slightly in the saddle. You'll be paid well. The rider said nothing. And his voice carried across the yard again. My husband died protecting this map. The words landed heavy in the cold air. Victor Hale stared at her. That's unfortunate. Anna didn't look away. He knew what you were doing. Cole folded the map halfway. But not before every rider had seen the names. The fire inside the cabin popped softly. Warm light flickered through the doorway. Victor Hale glanced at it briefly. Then back at Cole. You've made your point. Cole stayed quiet. Victor Hale's voice dropped. But that paper doesn't stop me. The wind picked up slightly. Cold air brushed across the yard. One rider shifted closer to Hale. Another drifted slightly farther back. The line was no longer tight. Victor Hale noticed. His jaw hardened. You men ride with me. No one answered. The wind carried the faint sound of another horse somewhere far across the prairie. Anna heard it. Cole heard it too. Victor Hale turned his head slightly. Listening. The sound faded again. Just wind. Just grass moving. Victor Hale turned back. His voice sharpened. You think you've won something here? Cole answered quietly. No. A pause. But they've learned something. Victor Hale followed his gaze. His riders avoided looking at him. The silence grew heavier. One man finally spoke. Low. Uncertain. That map. Victor Hale snapped toward him. Enough. The rider fell quiet again. But the doubt remained. Cole folded the parchment completely. The paper rustled softly. Victor Hale studied the two figures standing in the yard. The quiet cowboy. The widow with steady eyes. The wind lifted across the prairie again. Victor Hale slowly pulled his reins. His horse turned slightly. His voice returned to calm. This isn't finished. Cole nodded. Didn't think it was. Victor Hale looked once more at the map in Cole's hand. Then at the riders behind him. The moment stretched long. Finally he turned his horse toward the open prairie. The riders hesitated. Then followed. Hooves thudded slowly across the frozen ground. Dust lifted behind them. Anna watched them ride away. The wind moved across the ranch again. Cold. But lighter somehow. She exhaled slowly. Cole lowered the rifle. The metal clicked softly against the porch rail. Anna looked at him. They'll be back. Cole nodded. Yeah. The wind carried the fading hoofbeats across the hills. But something had changed. Victor Hale had ridden away. And his men had seen the truth. Spring arrived quietly on the prairie. Snowmelt trickled through the low grass. The wind carried warmth instead of frost. Cole Turner leaned against the fence near the barn. The wood creaked softly under his weight. A hammer struck somewhere inside the yard. Clink. Clink. Anna Whitlock stood beside a half-built gate. Sunlight caught in her hair as she drove a nail into the fresh plank. The ranch looked different now. Fences stood straight again. The barn doors hung solid on their hinges. Smoke curled steadily from the cabin chimney. Life had returned to the land. A wagon rolled slowly down the dirt road. The wheels rattled softly over the stones. Two men stepped down when it stopped beside the gate. Cole recognized them. Thomas Calder's son. Elijah Boone's nephew. Families who had once lost everything. Anna wiped her hands on her apron and walked to meet them. The gate creaked open. Warm wind brushed across the yard. You found the place. The younger man nodded. He carried a folded paper in his hand. We heard about the map. Anna glanced back toward the cabin. Cole remained by the fence, listening. The young man continued. The sheriff in Dry Creek looked it over. His voice carried a note of disbelief. Said the claims were real. And his eyes softened. That land was never Hale's. The wagon creaked again as another man climbed down. Sheriff posted notice yesterday. He smiled faintly. Victor Hale lost half the valley. The wind stirred dust along the road. Cole watched quietly. The men studied the ranch around them. You planning to stay here, Mrs. Whitlock? Anna looked across the pasture. Horses grazed near the creek. Fence posts stood strong in the sunlight. Yes. The young man nodded once. Good. He tipped his hat toward Cole. Man like that deserves neighbors. Cole shifted slightly. The fence rail groaned under his arm. After a moment the wagon rolled away again. The wheels faded slowly down the road. Silence returned to the yard. But it was not the old silence. It carried the sound of work. Of horses. Of wind and living grass. Anna walked back toward the barn. Cole spoke without turning. You could have taken your ranch back. Anna rested her hands on the gate. This one's home now. The barn door opened with a slow creak. A horse snorted inside. Anna smiled slightly. You mind? Cole glanced at her. Mind what? Sharing the place. Cole looked across the land. Fence lines stretching clean and straight. Smoke lifting from the chimney. The same wind that once rattled empty boards now moved gently through the yard. No. Anna picked up the hammer again. Clink. Clink. Cole pushed away from the fence. He walked toward the porch. The boards creaked beneath his boots. The cabin door stood open. Inside the fire burned steady in the hearth. Warm light filled the room. The same fire that had burned on the first night she arrived. But the room looked different now. 2 chairs stood near the flames. A kettle hummed softly above the coals. A second cup rested beside the first on the table. Cole stepped inside. The floorboards creaked familiar under his weight. He poured coffee slowly. Steam curled into the warm air. Outside the hammer kept tapping. Clink. Clink. Anna's voice drifted through the open doorway. You planning to sit all day? Cole stepped back onto the porch. The sunlight felt warmer than he remembered. Anna leaned against the half-built gate. Dust smudged across her cheek. She watched him quietly. Cole walked toward her. The hammer rested between them on the fence post. For a moment neither spoke. The wind moved gently across the prairie. Not cold now. Soft. Almost peaceful. Anna finally broke the quiet. You know something, Cole Turner? What? The morning you paid my debt. She looked toward the hills beyond the ranch. I thought my life was ending. Cole rested one hand on the fence rail. The wood creaked again. And now? Anna smiled. Now it feels like it's starting. The wind brushed through the tall grass. The horses lifted their heads near the creek. Anna picked up the hammer again. Clink. Clink. Cole held the gate steady while she drove the last nail. The wood settled into place with a firm knock. The sound echoed lightly across the ranch. The gate swung open smoothly. Anna stepped back. There. Cole tested the hinge. The gate moved easy. No squeal. No rattle. Just quiet motion. The same wind that once carried distant riders now carried only the sound of grass. And the steady creak of a ranch gate opening to a peaceful home. If this story stirred a memory or two, saddle up with us again, hit subscribe and help keep these old frontier tales alive. Out here, every name, every trail, every sunset still matters. So till we meet again, friend, keep your hat tipped to the past, and your heart pointed west.